Hey, and welcome to this demo. We're going to show the power resource or electricity. At the sidebar, you can see how much power will be consumed or produced. Let's build a wind trap or a power plant. It will produce 100 power. Build a refinery and it will consume 40. You will see at the top the results. Now let's build a heavy factory, and the power consumption and power production is the same. Let's see what happens if we go over the production. So we will consume more power than we produce. Let's build another heavy factory, place it, and we're on low power. When I'm building a tank, it is a bit slower. I will show you how fast it can be when we are at full power or at enough power. So let's build a wind trap and build a tank. And there you go, way much faster, twice as fast actually. That's it for now. Let's go into the code. Let's start with the rules.ini file. This file contains properties, and we have added the ability to set the power consumption and production, which makes sense. The construction yard consumes and produces 30, which is just an arbitrary number. And you can see a refinery consumes 40, palace consumes 90, and the wind trap only produces power. So what happens if a structure is damaged, and especially the wind trap? I wanted to have impact on the power production, and I'm going to show it to you now. I'm going to build a wind trap, and I'm going to build the palace. So the wind trap produces 100, and the palace consumes, and now we're going to shoot this missile, and I missed. No damage, but let's detonate a bit closer, and you will see, because of the damage, the power production is influenced, and I got actually too low power. And that's so that's a nice effect, and it's fairly straightforward and hard-coded now, but we can change that later. So I put in a comment here how it's calculated. And the basic idea is that you will always get like 50% power output regardless. And the other 50% is based on the health of the structure, which means basically if you have only like 1 HP, you will get 50% plus, and then 1 HP divided by the remaining HP, which is a very low amount. So let's go to the player, because in the player class a lot of stuff is happening. We keep the status of the power production and consumption because we do not want to recalculate this in every frame. Performance-wise, it's not smart to do, and it's also not necessary to do, because we'd like to only calculate things when we need to calculate them. So there's a function here that calculates the production and consumption. Just go over all the entities and get the production or the consumption. And I just saw, well, I'd like to see the production, and now we're gonna jump into this function which I just showed you. This is based on health, on hit points. That's how it works. And In all the other cases, we just get it from the rules.ini file, and internally we call it an entity data clause. So there are two cases for a player. An entity can be added to the list. That's when an entity is being created. Usually a structure or a unit is produced. Could even be a projectile. And in the other cases, they can be destroyed. But in both cases, these are like events happening. And based on those two happenings, we recalculate the power production and consumption. So that's also like really makes sense. There are only a few moments when this happens. And so as long as we let the player know, the player will simply recalculate the power status. So there's no like a generic messaging bus. We do consider it. So what about this? So this is low power, which is of course a very straightforward if statement, and we can influence here the whatever happens if you are on low power. And this is for depositing resources. Harvesters deposit twice as slow if on low power, and if on low power the build speed is reduced by half for all producing structures. And this could be configured, of course. We could expose this perhaps, but maybe in some other time. But this allows us to further influence low power scenarios. So what if a structure takes damage? As you can see, when a structure takes damage, the power is recalculated for a player. So let's go to the take damage function to show you how it's made. We call the player entity to damage function, pass in the entity, and if the entity produces power, we will just calculate, or at least trigger the calculate function. And that's how it works. That's it. Bye.